Anyway, here we are, 7:30ish, and I had this thought. Yes, I'm going to fix the screen so we get a little bit more of a full body shot. Yeah, and my thought a little bit is just to touch base with people. We're kind of going through the pandemic response to it. Tonight there's a presidential debate. I have a certain amount of interest, rooting interest in how it goes, but I'm going to wait until it's over and just check what went on as opposed to try to follow it. But the sense of stress management, okay? And one time there was a person that kind of defined stress as making certain things too important. And that means that, you know, we have certain things like the pandemic, we are restricted in our movement, our ability to go out, ability to socialize. So there's a lot going on. And we've been in this condition for months now. Okay, so basically, I think the middle of the second week of March, the dojo closed. And so we've done online classes and some outdoor classes. But really, everything is just in terms of Aikido, in terms of being able to go out and train, has come to a standstill. So what I thought we'd do a little bit tonight is just explore a couple of things. We'll touch base during the course of the class. So I'm saying we'll go from 7:30 to about 8:30, okay? And we'll try to do some things. And one of the ways that I categorized it was to try to have some fun, okay? Fun is always a real stress reducer. If you're having fun, yeah, oftentimes, you know, you can handle a lot of things. It's kind of when we get caught up, you know, in certain thought patterns and where we start to make certain things important that maybe are important, but not that important, then we lose perspective. Our systems tend to experience what we call stress. It's a management of our own energy. It's all this energy and it starts to run around and patterns up here, and all of a sudden, you know, it has physiological, psychological, even spiritual effects. Okay? So, one of the things that we did in about the last week or two, I think we've been kind of prepping for this. And when I first started, though, we did a lot of work with energy. And one way of dealing with stress is you shift your focus. All right, there's certain things that are going on in the world that aren't going to stop just because we meet and try certain things. But one of the things that I want you to do is just put your hands out here. This is an old exercise. In fact, this was the first thing that I ever did in an Aikido class. Was Robert Frazier sensei. He taught at UC Santa Cruz. We had a club meeting, the first one, and he said, talking about Aikido, he was going to explain ki or energy. So I'm holding the hands here. And what I'm doing right here is kind of feeling a current or flow. And just taking the hands. See, if I kind of go this way, it's almost like a north to south pole connection. I feel like a connection. If I start to go this way, it feels more north to north, south to south. So I'm just sort of, there's a sensation in between the hands. Oh, yeah. And it's interesting that this is always there. But when I'm worrying about this or obsessing about that, then I get caught up in all these thoughts. See, what Bruce Lee calls the noisy mind, the world of the eye. So just to kind of quiet down and start to feel the energy flowing from your left to your right, right to your left. puts me right there in a different state. This is always available, but oftentimes I'm just too busy or making things, I'm too good at making things that are important, way more important, and taking and losing my balance. So notice how right here, there's a left, there's a right. That energy is going back and forth, left to right, right to left. So feeling almost between the hands, there's a magnetism or a field. And what I'm really doing is using words to describe what is an experience. And those things are still going to go on, and a lot of them are important. But when I'm here, I'm not making them more important than they are. I'm a bit more here and now. And there's kind of, for me, a sense of wonder, experiencing the left and the right and the left, and this energy. Okay? So this is an old practice that in a lot of ways maybe we could do a little bit more, but it's the very first practice that I ever did in an Aikido class, which was the UC Santa Cruz club meeting #1 with Robert Frazier Sensei. And it opened up a lot for me. Okay, so just going to switch over here. And so, we were doing this exercise. Anybody, any comment or with me on the energy going back and forth? Anybody? The point I guess I'm trying to make is that when I can focus on this, focus on the energy, then I'm not making certain things more important than they are. In my mind, just in focusing on more of what I call a feel experience mode, and that dialogue in my head isn't running me. So things like anxiety, stress, all of a sudden I'm kind of in this other attention. Okay? So that's kind of what I thought we'd do. So maybe it's just to anybody with a question or comment on that? Okay, everybody here is an Aikido. Was this something that we were doing? For example, there's a field between the hands. You can feel it as you move the hands this way and that way. But after a while, there's a field going around the hands and around you. You are in an energy field. Okay? And one of the things we were doing is, for example, here, this movement. I think sometimes the energy talks in terms of images. Like there's a building and these are 2 elevators. We're going to use that sense right there. One goes up, the other goes down. That other one goes up, the first one goes down. So there's a sense of a balance. Now, what we did at one of the noon classes is start to kind of see, well, this is the motion. For example, here, we're doing an Aikido movement, heaven and earth. I'm seeing the sinking feeling with the lower hand and a rising feeling in the upper hand. Yeah. So there's motion within that larger energy field. Now, for example, here, my lower body is supported by that field. So we don't have a partner, but our partner right now is this energy field. For example, somebody grabs my wrist and I'm going to do a technique, but you could argue that the technique with a partner is an expression of these energies. Earth, heaven, and they kind of meet back there. And it's not out there too, but my body is supported by the feeling of the energy field. There's movement in that field. For example, that motion down connects me, but also the motion up supports me. So there's both a and a. So I kind of like sometimes just to take a session here and just explore the energy field. So let's back up for a second. This is the basic. In fact, we had 1 quarter, it was a 10-week quarter system at UC Santa Cruz. And I did the first 10 weeks. We met twice a week, Monday, Wednesday, the Aikido club. And so we come back from the, the following quarter started in January. And Robert Frazier started the quarter off with this, is I hope everybody's been practicing this. And in other words, getting in touch with energy. Okay? Now, it's difficult to do, but if you put your right hand up here and your left hand down here, we've been kind of working this. We're not reversing palms or anything, but you'd have somebody facing you. Their right hand would be over their left, and their left would be palm up under your right. And you would start to establish this field connection. In other words, you are working your own energy, but all of a sudden, there's the same feeling of an energy flow with your partner. Now, some of that goes on just when you're training in the Aikido techniques, because you really don't have any Aikido techniques without this energy connection. But the feeling here, would I be receiving partner's energy, partner's right hand in my left, and it would be circulating inside me, and it would be going back out my right to my partner's left, and that would, it would be a circuit of energy. And I remember my first year again, the academic year. It was a spring semester, so Robert Frazier was a psychology professor at Merrill College. And they had something called the spring thing. And so we had a whole gathering of students at Merrill College, and he had, the Aikido people there, but everybody went there and formed some huge ring around the quad, and we just kind of, Robert Frazier later said, wow, we got almost 100 people to feel ki. And so that was in its own way kind of cool, okay? In other words, it was just, it's available to everybody. We tend to, just, everything is energy. Communication is energy. Thought is energy, right? But energy is also energy. And I harmony, ki, energy, harmony with energy. Okay? So those are just a couple of practices, that we can sort of begin to do. Okay, and whoops. So right here, what I'm doing is just checking in, see if anybody has a statement or this stuff we used to do an awful lot of. And then what happened is, I don't know, the area kind of went into technique and rank. And so, which is important, you know. But, you know, when I first started, my first couple of years, it was really about, you know, feeling the energy. In fact, you know, Linda Holliday Sensei and I, we would sometimes do it in the Shingu school, not during the Aikido class, but before class or after. We were doing some of these energy practices. And you know who paid a lot of attention was Tojima Sensei. He would, you know, I was like, you know, he was at the time very advanced black belt. We were just black belt candidates. We weren't black belts yet. He would just be watching and saying, what are they doing? What are they doing? Because he knew we were working something around energy. And so that part that I found fascinating, he would just be kind of like very intently studying, feeling, trying to say, oh, they're working something around energy, not just the Aikido techniques. Okay? But anyway, those are patterns. What I think we can do here, and oftentimes, you know, the actual physical body is actually has a blueprint. And that blueprint is an energy body, all right? If you go pretty advanced, some of the Hindu traditions, you have an astral body. Well, Sensei really talked about, you know, the vapor body. So there are finer levels of body, just as there are finer levels of mind. As you are doing and working energy, you are not just getting the finer levels of energy body, but your consciousness. You're tuning into, you might say, the great energy mind as well, okay, which involves a certain amount of, not imaginary, but what does it feel like? It feels like a current or magnetic field. Okay, now how in the world do I know what that sort of current feels like or what a magnetic field feels like? All of a sudden, I'm kind of right here in the experience, and lo and behold, words come out. Oh, it's magnetic, or it's a current, or conversely, it's almost like there's a field between the hands, and there's even a larger field outside the hands. In fact, I'm standing in a larger field of energy. And what I kind of noticed, and I really started to realize that, my posture straightens. My spine lengthens. My interior experience the breathing a little bit more rhythmic. And, you know, when I'm in the world of stress and anxiety, pulse rate, heartbeat, blood sugar, all those things just, so all of a sudden we're kind of in a zone. The energy kind of has a harmony. It's a right and a left. The right and the left talk, right? The actual great energy mind and whatever level of energy body, they also talk. There's a current, there's a communication. Okay? Oh. A couple of things, for example, movements, energy can kind of condense, contract, it can expand. So this is a nice exercise. Boom. In fact, these are two of O-sensei's 8 powers: contraction, condensation, expansion. Yeah. This motion. motion coming back, motion going out. And I can do this as just a form or exercise, or I can realize. It's a little bit like those things at the airport where you can step on them and you go this way, or you can step on the other one and go that way. And both tracks are going on. But this is a very and as you kind of do that, you realize, I'm moving, but there's an energy field. There's movement in that field. There's kind of a contraction, expansion. Well, we can almost call it breath in that field. And it's not just an idea of the arms, but the rest of the body starts to feel that contraction, expansion. Except by this is very much the feel of some Tai Chi. Okay, so those movements. Was any movement, expansion, contraction, goes out, 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 comes back, back, back. Expansion, contraction, coming back to the center. And it goes the other way. You can expand this way. So whatever the movement is, now for example, I go this way, let me go this way, but on the other hand, see the energy southern field, the form actually, you get a deeper, deeper, deeper base without having to do that. A good Tai Chi, it's not just done out there, but what I'm doing right here, for example, shifting the weight. Here is supposed to just sort of locking down here. And here, get an energy beat that way, that way. We're starting to kind of touch circle. Get a center. There's a circle. Now we can, for example, follow that circle. Center, there's a complementary circle. Or conversely, there's a beat. A beat. So I kind of start to appreciate the under support. And sometimes you get images like roots. So it's not just holding your posture here. And sooner or later, what happens is you kind of want to move. So basic tenkan motion. Doing the move that way, but now from here, there's this motion. Oh, the basic movement like that. That's something that is hard to do sometimes on your own. So I just thought what we do is try a class and just see whether we can begin to, just play around in the energy. Okay. And again, what we can't change what's going on in the world, but we can change our response to it. As I kind of, and in this sort of world of energy, then in some sense, I'm right here, right now. I'm not putting anything in hold. That's all going on out there, but I'm right here. Feeling kind of this ground base, appreciated a much fuller sense of breath. And a lot of times when we're this way, we're running around, there's all this weight. Here. This feeling of energy moving. So the body, even though it's a bit more grounded, feels lighter and fluid. My mind, because it's not running around in the same thoughts and anxiety, opens. And things like imagination start to. For example, any emotion, we were doing something like this, all of a sudden there's a how many different energy flows are there? And I could just, in Tai Chi, this is the brush knee and twist step motion. And as we go this way, it may go, when I change up down, it goes into heaven and earth. Right? So we're starting to go into just from, there's some level of center that is developing. See, my body has a center, but the energy body has an energy center. And ultimately, your body is an energy field. For that field has an energy field center. And there's motion within that field that organizes around the center. So that's just another way of kind of looking at the Aikido movements. Let's see, I just not sure anybody, but somebody may, anybody with a question or want to join in with anything, because we've been moving and talking. See, my actual state has changed since the beginning of class. Basically, I'm not sure about what's going on there, but I'm having some fun, just kind of moving and exploring the energy. So hopefully, I'm not the only one. Is there anybody with a question or statement or comment? Okay.
Oh, Sensei.
Sure.
Usually, I guess with meditation, people are not moving.
Yeah.
And but I guess with this motion, this is meditation in motion, or how do you?
I thought we'd go into meditation a little later. I would say that it's meditative. It's sometimes you get the expression mindful. Well, that just means you're conscious. Most of the time we're in this energy, but we're not conscious of it. Okay, so to some degree, what happens, we get caught up in a lot of busy thoughts, and that turns into anxiety. That anxiety produces effects in our body, which are stress. And somehow when we are more consciously in the energy, a lot of that reverses. So I would say it's not meditation. We're going to do a little bit. I thought we'd kind of do that towards the end. But in motion, okay? If I'm going to go somewhere, I can kind of walk, and there's an energy flow. You know, I always like those things at the airport that you walk on and you go this speed, but you're going really fast. You know, I always thought, you know, if you could just go this way, it'll carry you there. But when you start to walk, well, that's the feeling of walking in an energy flow. You know who really likes this walking practice is Robert Nadeau. But so if you walk, you can call it an energy walk. All right. So anything, you know, if you play energy games, you find things that kind of, I don't know, they enhance. Okay. In other words, I'm not walking like this. Boom. All of a sudden, there's the energy walk. Okay. So part of that, you know, I would say that it's, for me, it's not meditation, but it's meditative in a way. It's meditation in action. I kind of, you know, Aikido, meditation in action, mindfulness in motion, something like that. So yeah, there's kind of an effect where you may find that. I know that when I did my first Aikido class, I'd been doing Japanese karate, and we used to go and meditate for, you know, the beginning and the end of the class. It wasn't very long. But one time, the teacher didn't just cut it after about 10 seconds. And I just got into a meditative state. And it lasted longer than normal for whatever reason. I thought, I kind of like this. And then, you know, my first Aikido class, you know, we started with the energy practice with the hands. And we did, you know, we did periods of meditation as a part of the class. And I really liked that. I really thought that was very, very, you know, cool. You know, it was just very different, took me to a much different place within myself than I'd ever been. Okay, I still remember that first class pretty well. Okay, anybody else with a question or comment? Check yourself. In other words, you know, I'm right now, I'm present, I'm engaged, I'm not obsessing about anything, all right? Hopefully my energy is reaching out, making a connection, okay? And so this sort of stuff is very positive, all right? Anybody? Okay, and so we are getting on there. The question about the meditation, there are many different meditation styles. But one of the first styles that I was introduced to was what Robert Fraser used. And he studied not just with O-sensei, he studied with a man named Tempu Nakamura. And a lot of the early Aikido teachers, like Koichi Tohei sensei, they had a lot of difficulty understanding O-sensei's explanation of ki. So a lot of them studied with Tempu Nakamura sensei. And so this is just something that we used to do. And so I'm going to slide back so I get a full body. This is, by the way, just a meditation bell. So what I'm going to do is just, what I'd like you to do, I'm going to sit easy. You could do this in a chair, or I could kind of slide more to a, you know, quarter lotus, or I could say so, but I'm just going to sit easy right here. Okay? And there'll be sound, and that sound will start to be very alive, and then it'll go to silence. And there's that moment when you can hear the silence. And then we'll hit the bell again, sound, vibration, and you'll find that moment when that goes into silence. Okay, so that's part of the meditation. You're in the aliveness of the vibration of the sound, but you're also starting to discern the silence. So do this for a little bit. We'll just check in. Okay, ready? So that was a form of meditation that Robert Fraser Sensei used to use. We didn't do it so much in the Aikido classes, but he taught I think it was the winter section of the academic year, 10 weeks. Okay. He taught the psychology of Far Eastern religion. And so what we would do is, we had a reading list, which was really good. Okay. And he brought in lecturers, some of them were the authors of the books. And he would start the class with the meditation. And he would use the bell. And so that was, something that, I kind of appreciated. Okay, it was but for me, for example, when I start to do that, initially, as much as I'd like to think my mind's pretty quiet, I begin to notice initially, how noisy my mind is. And what happens is, as that sound sort of fades, there is that area where you start to get in touch with silence. And as we repeat it again and again and again, then what happens is that the silence itself becomes a thing. And you realize at all times, to some degree, that silence is going on at all times. But what is also going on is this noisy mind. And so that sort of exercise is good, or meditation, because it gets me to a place where I can kind of not just know about the silence, but kind of soak in it. The silence becomes a thing, okay? A perceptive feel, experience. Anybody on that one? I think we went for just probably about 10 minutes with it. But any changes anybody notices in the just from the meditation and the bell? Anybody? Okay.
I got more relaxed.
Yeah.
I certainly got more relaxed and felt a little sleepy.
Yeah, that's the problem with that. I know that there was a time or two I used to do things, like I usually had a little free time, before the Far Eastern religion course. So I'd go out and I'd run 10 laps around the sports field, and that was 5 miles. There were a couple times when I would go, to the class, and I just felt like I was going to fall asleep. I go, and I have to catch myself. So, that is an experience sometimes in meditation, by the way, that you start to kind of drift. So, the movement that we do is kind of nice, because we're trying to touch a little bit of that meditative quality in motion. Okay? And, so, that part of it. In fact, I have a thing I'd like to do off of that, and off of the sound, but in movement. So anybody else with but it's a relaxed thing. But the major thing that Himpu Sensei taught, Robert Fraser used to teach, what he called the Tempu method. And a lot of high-ranking Aikido teachers actually study with Tempu Nakamura. The most famous of whom is Koichi Tohei Sensei. Okay, and so Robert Fraser would teach the Tempu thing. A lot of it was about not controlling your thoughts, but realizing in a lot of ways, a lot of the thoughts that go on in that mind stream, the noisy mind place, are negative thoughts. And so, part of Aikido to have, real positive flow of energy you take some responsibility for the state of your consciousness. And most spiritual teachers will tell you that, you know, negative thoughts kind of lower your consciousness. And a lot of the negative thoughts are in that real rapid, noisy mind place. So things like the bell, there are other things we could do. But anybody else, by the way, before we go on, we're going to end with some movement. Okay, I was actually going to do the meditation at the end, but I just thought it would be a good thing to throw out. And then we'll kind of end with some motion. Okay, anybody? Anything to add? Or if I check body, just kind of revitalize. I mean, meditation can really increase your energy. Okay. Mind is still kind of, it's not, the silence is not mental. After a bit, the silence becomes a kind of texture, a quality. So in some sense, it's still here. It's easier sometimes than when you hear that bell go into silence. I used to, because every once in a while I'd have to take a kid's class. And so what I would do is I would say, okay, we're going to play a game. And so I would hit the bell and say, when the sound stops, I want you to say now. And so, you know, they sort of got that, you know, if they went now too quick, they were kind of not doing it. And so, you know, I got the kids to really calm down and wait for the silence before they said now. And so it became kind of a, even though you're not supposed to compete, the kids kind of, you know, created a game within that practice. And they got the words pretty good. They could be very perceptive where they could actually hear the silence. Okay? Anybody else before we move into the motion part? Okay. Yeah, and one of the things I thought we'd do is movement. Movement and sound are very connected. This is the motion. But I want you to realize, you know, we're so motion oriented, but this motion starts from stillness and goes back to stillness. This motion started from stillness and went back to stillness. We could do some crazy stuff like that, but that started from some sense of stillness and went back to stillness. When I'm so like this, I get caught up and I don't realize there's a stillness here. And there's a stillness here, it's just like, you know, the sound goes through the silence. Motion, you can stand in that stillness. Things like silence, stillness, they're kind of good antidotes for the noisy mind. So what I'd like you to do, just maybe play with it. Again, these are two Morimoto Sensei's 8 powers. Any motion, there's a space, a stillness that it comes out of and goes back to. Any movement comes out of stillness, eventually goes back to stillness. Any movement. So I'd just like you to move and just say, okay, I'm going to stop. Initially, yeah, but you know, this movement. Now, I can go this way, the movement's going on another thing, but on the other hand, at some point, It's going to go back to stillness, which gives birth to another movement cycle. Feet moving. Sometimes you see in the Japanese sword fight movies, not the clang, clang, clang ones, but when two really good swordsmen are going at it, and then maybe there's a movement over here. And then there's usually one falls and the other doesn't. But that's kind of maybe the zen of the situation. Because there's always stillness going on. Even that this motion, which kind of is a flow, is a combination of movements, but that movement is supported by some sort of realization, calm, which is a kind of cousin of the stillness. Was any Aikido move? Or conversely, just there's stillness and there's motion. Goes back to stillness. See, what the sense of it is, it's almost like we get caught up in a run-on sentence that doesn't say anything. That is anxiety, goes into stress. So something happens, there's movement. It goes back to stillness. And then there can be something else from that stillness. And that goes back to that stillness. And then when I can do that, my attention stays much sharper on what I'm doing. And because the stillness is a place where you kind of replenish. If you're just everything just starts to kind of spin, that's the anxiety. And I'm in that anxious state, the body starts to feel, to some degree, the stress comes in. Oh, gee. Just the ability to go, okay, I'm cool here. Robert Nadeau Sensei likes those terms, easy, open. And that's kind of the stillness area. Be easy there. Right? And so, just any motion, you can do we're not, but okay, this movement goes to a stillness, goes to the next motion, goes to stillness, boom, stillness. After a while, there's a stillness. It's not that, it's like this is a stillness, this goes stillness, and boom, boom, boom. And the stillness actually orchestrates the movement. Boom, 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 boom. Whatever technique is, there's motion, stillness, more motion, stillness, more motion, stillness. So, that's just kind of what I do a lot of times, because you really don't have a new K these days, but you can, boom, boom, boom. Stillness, stillness, and there's motion connecting that stillness, but also there's stillness connecting this motion. Yeah. So, a lot of our movements, each of those, there's a stillness there. As you get a little better, then what happens is you move from stillness to stillness, and the motion connects to stillness. So it's boom. Okay, anyway, let's let us. We are about at that time. So anyway, I just thought it'd be interesting to start, or try a class on stress management. Anybody, like for example, how do I feel right now? I feel looser. I feel lighter. I have energy. I'm not planning on doing anything, but I'm also not, oh my gosh, class is over, I better rest. I don't feel that way. Anybody care to share a word or two? Don't have to, but we're kind of at the 8 o'clock or 8:30 point, so, right? Okay, but anyway, we'll check in to see how that went. Okay, so if this is something that people like, we can schedule this on a more regular basis. Okay, all right, this is, for me, it's actually kind of fun. Okay, all right? Okay, so I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Sensei.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.